Thanks, Louise, and welcome everyone. This is a fabulous event that we've had the pleasure of staging for many years with both Louise, the Capital City LEN, the Ronald McDonald Learning Program, and our partners across VCAR and VTAC and with many others. So we're really pleased to be presenting our annual education webinar. Whilst we're waiting for everyone to log in, I'm Evelyn and manage the Transition Support Service at the Royal Children's Hospital and have the pleasure of being your MC this evening. As we progress through this event, please pop any questions that you may have in the question box as we go along, and we'll endeavour to answer questions along the way after each presentation. Just a note too that tonight's webinar will be recorded. Tonight, we have the pleasure of hearing from a number of speakers, including Kiri Kane, who is the manager of the Ronald McDonald Learning Program. And Kiri will be talking about supports available for students with chronic medical conditions and disabilities. Next, we'll have Francesca Pisano. Francesca's a careers counsellor and vet cluster coordinator from the City LEN. And she'll be talking about choosing a career and pathways. We'll also have Caleb Della Rosa speaking about his experience as a young person coming through the RCH as a patient and how he managed juggling having medical needs as well as his education. We're also pleased to present two speakers from the VCAA, Victorian Curriculum and Assessment Authority, Dal Lloyd and Trish Ellis, and they'll be talking about special provision. Next, we have another young person, Emily Angelique, a young person speaking about her transition experience and also balancing managing a health condition and education. And this will be followed by Luke Papathihari from the VTAC, Victorian Tertiary Admission Centre, and he'll be joined by Emily. And both Luke and Emily will join us for the panel discussion. Thank you. And I'd like to hand over now to Kiri. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Give me 1 second, I'll just get this ready to go. Wonderful. So thank you so much for coming tonight. So as Evelyn said, I work in the learning program and we do provide educational support for young people who have been impacted by serious illness or injury, including young people who have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. I know today there's quite a few people who are actually currently on the learning program, but we do have guests who perhaps don't know about our program, so I will share what we do, and please reach out if you feel you could do with some extra support and you're not already receiving it. So the Ronald McDonald Learning Program is a community-based program and we have about 260 places each year. One thing that you might not know is that we do support siblings. We've been very fortunate to be able to include siblings last year and this year. And for a long time, we've recognised the impacts to siblings. So we can provide up to 20 sessions for young people who've got siblings that have been diagnosed with illness. It is up to 40 hours of one-to-one tutoring support with a qualified teacher. Occasionally we'll use university students if we are unable to find enough qualified teachers for the subjects that you request. The tuition can be delivered online or it can be in person. If you would like in-person tuition, it must be in a public place. So we don't do any in-person tuition in the homes of tutors or students. However, online can be done in an open place or open space in the house. There is a grant program that I would like to share with you. It's called the Bridge the Gap Grant Program. And this is an additional support that is actually separate to the standard learning program. This program is really aimed for young people who are outpatients and are kind of in that gap period where they've been discharged from hospital, but they're not medically able to go to school yet. And they're not able to access educational support through their treating hospital. And the reason why I say that, there is, I know at Monash Hospital, they are in a space where they're starting to look at some outpatient support. But if you're being treated at RCH or other hospitals, we can provide you with some extra support to transition back to school. This support is 2 hours of tuition per week. It is meant for a short-term period or a defined period known as the gap. For example, you might be advised by the doctors that you need to stay at home and recover for a period of perhaps 6 weeks or 8 weeks, maybe longer, before you can transition or return to school. We will be able to provide you with some support in the interim. And then once you start to transition back to school and your attendance increases, then you have the option to transfer over to the standard learning program. And this is just a grant program too. We're very, very grateful for a donor that's enabled this to happen, and we do have enough funding to support us through to term 1 next year at this stage. A quick reminder for those young people who perhaps don't know about Ed Rollo or are just accessing a couple of subjects at your school. You are able to access Ed Rollo through the Ronald McDonald Learning Program free of charge for any subjects offered that you don't have a subscription for at school. If you are at Monash Hospital at the Children's Hospital as well, sometimes the teachers may offer it for you there as well, but please reach out to the learning program if you would like access to these wonderful tutorials and extra support provided through Ed Rollo. The other thing that I wanted to talk about with you today, given that it's coming up, is our annual Charlie Bell Scholarship. So the late Charlie Bell was a young person who started at McDonald's and worked all his way up until he became the Australian global CEO of McDonald's. Charlie was exceptionally passionate about young people pursuing their dreams, and his legacy has actually enabled RMHC charities to award annual scholarships to young people impacted by illness. So the annual scholarship is a one-off $5,000 scholarship. The applications close November 30, and just so that you know, they're actually open now. It's usually open August 1st, but I can see on the website that it's actually available for you to start your application now. The scholarship really is for young people who are transitioning to TAFE or university next year or in the following calendar year. So if you're a young person who is planning on taking a year off or a gap year next year, but would really like to apply for Charlie Bell, you can apply up to your sort of 21. So please just hold off. And when you intend to go to university or TAFE, you can apply then. The scholarship is to help support further study and the costs associated with that. So that could be transport, school fees, accommodations, books, laptops, equipment, whatever it is that you feel would be helpful for you to support your further study. With the scholarship, you do require 2 written references, so I will give you a heads up about that. And there is a small section that we ask you to tell us a little about your impacts to your education. It's quite similar to your C's application for those who intend on applying for that. I know we have a speaker talking about that later this evening. So you can utilise some of that support that you've already written to go towards a Charlie Bell Scholarship application as well. Everything is applying online, and I will share with you this QR code. This does take us to the RMHC Australia website. You have all the information regarding our programs and our supports. So please, if you'd like to apply for the Charlie Bell or you'd like to find out more about the learning program and supports that we have, you're most welcome to email myself or Liz. or if you, like I said, if you follow the QR code and follow the links, it will be sent on to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kerry. That was really informative, and I know, speaking on behalf of young people that we've referred to your program, they've really benefited from all the different facets of supports that you provide. So thank you very much. Just in terms of questions, there was a question in the chat around how many sessions is the 40 hours per year, and yes, it is a one-off 40 hours sessions. Kiri, would you have any other comments on that?
That's a really great question. Thank you. So yes, it is a one-off program. So what we say to young people is if you're in any other year level other than year 12 and you're tracking okay, but you think you would like the support a little bit later, we would recommend that you hold off because you can only use it once. And it does need to be in consecutive sessions. So the minimum time that we ask for the tuition is fortnightly. So unfortunately, we can't, just because of tutor retention and tutor availability, we can't sort of give young people blocks. So you can't sort of say, oh, can I have five sessions here and then another, towards the end of the term. You do need to be able to commit at a minimum fortnightly. But we're very happy to have that conversation with you. If you'd like more information, we can talk you through that.
Thanks, Kerry. You've got a fabulous team, and we're always asking lots of questions of you and your team, so thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to introduce our next speaker now, Francesca Pisano from City Len. Francesca's been wonderful too in supporting many of our young people, particularly in her role as career counsellor. But I'd like to invite Francesca now to say a few words. Thanks, Francesca.
Thanks, Evelyn. And I'll share my screen first, but it's so great hearing from Kiri, because I actually did spend a couple of years working in that program. So it is a wonderful program. And just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I have worked in schools in senior secondary years for a number of years. And I've also, as Evelyn mentioned, worked as a career counsellor. My current role is as a vet cluster coordinator with the City Len. So I want to spend this, the next 15 minutes just going through pathways in relation to your options at senior secondary level, but also post-school. It will be a fair bit of information, so not all the answers are here, but hopefully the main message I like to get across is to gather all the information you need to make an informed decision for yourselves at this point in time, and just knowing what supports are out there as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is your school pathway options. And no doubt that some of these are familiar to you, particularly the VCE, the Victorian Certificate of Education, that's been around for many years. But in the last few years, we've had a couple of new programs introduced at senior secondary level, one of those being the VCE Vocational Major, or VM, as well as the Victorian Pathway Certificate. So I'll talk about each of these in turn. So the VCE is very much an academic course of study, and it involves completion of coursework assessment as well as exams. And it's completed over at least 2 years, but often, you might find that you start your VCE early in year 10. So a lot of students might do a unit 1 and 2 subject at year 10. And some students also, when schools allow it, can do a year 13 as well. So you can complete it over more than 2 years. There are some minimum requirements, the main one being that you need to complete at least 3 units, including a unit 3 and 4 of an English subject, which could include English, literature, English language, or English as an additional language for those of you who are eligible. But otherwise, you can choose any range of subjects from a vast choice that would suit your aspirations and your interests, of course. You do also need to complete a minimum of 16 units. So each unit lasts about half a year, and units 1 and 2 are generally year 11. Not always. Like I said, some students can do these units earlier or sometimes even later, and units 3 and 4 are generally year 12. VCE does provide a direct pathway to several options post-school. So the main one that people think of is university and often through the ATAR, although that's changed quite a lot in recent years. There are other ways of getting into university, but it's also a direct pathway into TAFE or into apprenticeships and traineeships or into work. And of course, a gap year isn't mentioned there, but that's also an option as well. Now, the vocational major, the difference, it's still VCE, but the key difference is that it is an applied learning course of study, and it is vocational means work. So students who choose to do this generally have a strong interest in preparing for the workforce as soon as they finish school, or a particular pathway, a vocational pathway. So for example, some students might be very interested in a particular trade, or it doesn't have to be a trade, but they might have a particular idea about where they're going, and this could be a way to get there. It is very practical, and there are certain requirements as well as part of the vocational major. In particular, all students have to complete what is known as a VET. Some of you might be familiar with this, but I'll explain more about it in a couple of slides. But it is something that all students in the VM have to do, as well as work placement. So again, like I said, it's very much about preparing for that world of work. It also can look different in different school settings, but it does also provide that direct pathway to several options post-school, in particular TAFE, apprenticeships and work. It can also provide an alternative pathway to university, and I'll talk more about that later on in this presentation, because there are a range of different ways that you could get to either further or higher education once you finish school. The Victorian Pathway Certificate is the last of these three options at senior secondary levels. So when we talk about senior secondary, we often refer to years 11 and 12, but it can also include year 10. The VPC is a very flexible option, and it could be a very suitable option for those of you who, for example, find that you need to miss a lot of school because of appointments, or perhaps just having time out of school for health reasons. And because the VCE and the vocational major do have fairly strict requirements around attendance, sometimes this is a great option for those of you who might need that flexibility. This particular certificate does require you to complete 12 units, and those units need to cover literacy, numeracy, work-related skills, and personal development skills. And at times you can also do additional subjects as part of that, such as a VET. It is offered on an as-need basis, and again can look different in different school settings, but it is also going to provide you a pathway. Now, what's unique about this certificate is that not only can it provide you a pathway to options after you finish school, but it can also be a pathway back into the VCE or the vocational major if that is something you want to do. So this is, like I said, fairly new. It's been around for the last few years. This is the third year that it's been in place, but it does offer that flexibility that still engages you at school, but gives you the option to move in and out as needed. Now, as I mentioned before, VET is also something that is integrated in those senior secondary years. It's a requirement in the vocational major, so it is compulsory that all students doing the vocational major complete a VET as part of the certificate, and it's optional for the VCE. And a number of students will choose to do a VET for many reasons. So it stands for Vocational Education and Training, and not only is a subject area, but it also provides a nationally recognised qualification. And the range of options are quite significant. So they can cover, like I mentioned before, the trades. So your traditional trades like construction, carpentry, electrotechnology, automotive, but also subjects such as allied health assistance, music, visual arts, languages, engineering. It's actually quite broad. So it is a great option if you have an idea of an area that you have an interest in. It could also present you with a pathway where you can start doing the qualification qualification at school, and then you can build your qualifications and do higher certificates. So you might do a certificate 2 or 3 at school and then move on to do further study in the same area when you finish school. Although you may also choose not to. You may just get your certificate at school and do something completely different where you finish, but you still have that qualification. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you do the vocational major, you do need to complete that minimum amount of hours as part of the requirements. However, that usually is achieved simply by completing the certificate, either certificate 2 or 3. So that's a lot of information about senior secondary pathways, but sometimes it can be difficult to know how to choose a pathway, whether it's choosing subjects or which particular certificate to do at a senior secondary level or when you do finish school. And as a career practitioner, I tend to go for almost the most basic thing to start with, which is choose what you actually enjoy and what you're interested in, because you're likely to stick with something if you do enjoy it, and you're likely to engage with it and succeed. So I would generally recommend starting with that point, because often if we choose things that we don't have that much interest in but we think will give us that pathway into a job, we're not likely to stick with it as well. So that's the first thing I would suggest. But of course, there are other things to think about as well. So there might be a particular job you already have an interest in, and there might be subjects that connect really they connect to that job, or they lead you to that job, whether it's a VCE subject or whether it's a vet. So that might be something to think about as well. Your personal situation will also be something that will help you decide which certificate might be appropriate for you. As I mentioned before, in some cases, going to the Victorian Pathway Certificate might be an option for a short period of time if attending school is an issue at the current moment. So that could be something to think about too. If the subject prepares you for further training or any tertiary courses you are considering. So if your interest is in doing something in the sciences when you finish school, then there's a logic that you might want to do some science-related subjects in your VCE or vocational major. You might do, for example, biology, or you might consider a vet that is also relevant to what you might want to do when you finish school. There might also be prerequisites that are important for you to consider for any further education or higher education that you are considering. The other thing that you might consider is looking at where the jobs are. Now, I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you only look at careers that are linked to where job growth is, but it might be useful information for you. So this chart shows, this is a government projection showing employment growth or projected employment growth for the 5 years to November next year. And as you can see, the area that's got the highest growth is in healthcare and social assistance. So if you already know that you have an interest in working either in healthcare, whether it's medicine, nursing, radiology, or whatnot, or perhaps as a social worker in aged care, community services, and you can see that there's significant growth in that area, that might also give you that motivation to explore those options a little bit more. But that being said, if you are interested in something that has not necessarily got that growth, such as information, media, and technology, telecommunications, doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't pursue it. So this is really just about gathering all the data you need so you can make an informed decision for yourself at this point in time. One thing I'd like to add too is that whatever decision you do make now, it doesn't lock you in for life. So the modern world of work, it's actually predicted that most of us, and especially your age, will be changing jobs and even careers multiple times through your lifetime. So it's really about making an informed decision for where you're at now, and remembering that whatever you do, you're not stuck, and all the skills you will gain will always be with you. So the key thing is to keep building your skills over time, and that's what will help you to move through your different jobs and careers throughout your lifetime. So my message here is don't think too far ahead, but think about what you're keen on at this point in time. And it's not an easy decision to make. But some other things that you could look at to help you research, these are a couple of sites that you may want to explore as well. So Jobs and Skills is a government site for you to look at, again, where the jobs growth are. My Future is more related to exploring yourself, as well as lots of information about different types of careers and career stories, because sometimes the best research is actually talking to the people in different roles and careers that you might have an interest in. Not always easy to find those people. So My Future can be useful because there's a lot of stories there from people in different jobs. And that can also help you make an informed decision for yourself. So once school ends, and even before school ends, you'll be thinking about what next. And generally, there are 4 ways that you could go. And I haven't included gap year there, but of course, that's also an option. Some people will choose to work during a gap year, but generally, the options are apprenticeships or traineeships, employment, TAFE, or university, or it could be a combination. Excuse me. So for many of you, you might want to work and study at the same time. So you might want to do some casual or part-time work while studying either full-time or part-time, depending on what suits your circumstances and your interests. Now, apprenticeships and traineeships are essentially you're learning while you're working. Now, apprenticeships generally apply to the trades. And like I said, all those traditional trades, but it can also apply to things like hairdressing. And what you'll be doing is learning on the job under an employer who will, you'll get paid not quite as much as you would when you're fully qualified, but you will be earning. And you'll also be completing a relevant qualification, usually a day a week, that is relevant to your work. So, for example, it might be a Certificate 3 in electrotechnology, if that's something that you're interested in. And this particular organization, MEGT, can help you explore, so you can actually see what apprenticeship opportunities are available, but they can also support you more directly. So they have a career hub team. And I should mention also traineeships, forgot to mention, traineeships are similar to apprenticeships, except they're more broad. So they're not only in the trades, they cover a wide range of roles. So for example, they're often are traineeships in office environments or business environments. But again, it's very similar. You're learning while you are on the job, you're earning, not a huge amount, but you're still earning something. And you're also completing some study related to that. So that can be a great option for a lot of people, especially those who are interested in getting into work probably straight after school. That's something to think about. And the other options, of course, are going immediately into study. So TAFE and university are 2 options. And I want to just explain the difference between the two, because they can be seen as quite different, but actually they often work in tandem. And in Victoria, we have a number of dual sector institutions. So what that means is that they are both a TAFE and university. And with the City Len, for example, we're city based. So we work closely with RMIT, and RMIT are both a TAFE and a university. So they provide courses that begin all the way from certificate level and go all the way up to a university level, bachelor and postgraduate. So the key thing is to remember what your goal is. So depending on what you would like to do when you finish school, some courses that might be more relevant might be vocational and therefore TAFE, or they might be more tertiary and therefore a university, a bachelor course. So it really depends on what your goal is in terms of what you want to be doing in terms of work and career. Now, many university courses do require an ATAR, but there are many pathways into courses at uni without an ATAR, and I'll show you an example of that in a moment. And the link I have down here is for Victoria University. So they're another dual sector institution, and that shows you just the different pathways that they offer via TAFE all the way through to university. The other thing to keep in mind is that some courses will provide you with guaranteed entry into the higher qualification, which I'll show you in a moment, as long as you meet the requirements. And I would strongly encourage you to link in with course advisors at both uni or TAFE, depending where you want to go. They are there to help you plan your pathway. So if you have an idea of, and it doesn't have to be one, you might have a few in mind that you might be interested in going to when you finish school, you can make appointments online with the course advisors and they can talk you through your options. And I would always encourage you to do that. And I should mention also, if you do have access to a career counselor, career advisor at your schools, make the most of them. Make appointments, talk to them. They have a lot of information that they can help you with in making that informed decision for yourself. So this is an example of a direct pathway in relation to nursing. And there is an error. I need to point out that the number with the Diploma of Nursing it's been updated. So I do apologise about that. I didn't get to update that. But as an example, RMIT, being a TAFE and a university, they offer the Diploma of Nursing, which is a 2-year course. So that is a qualification that means that at the end, whoever completes that course can become an enrolled nurse, which has a certain level of responsibility and attracts a certain salary. But if you complete that and you choose to, you are guaranteed entry into the Bachelor of Nursing, and you are also guaranteed that you can commence in the second year. So what that means is that you receive credit for a whole year because you've already got the Diploma of Nursing. And in doing the Bachelor of Nursing, once completed, you then can register as a registered nurse and you have a higher degree of responsibility as well as the capacity to earn a greater salary. So essentially your pathways means that as you complete a level in the same area, you generally have greater skills, greater responsibilities, and can earn more. So that's kind of how it works. But this is an example of a guaranteed pathway. There are plenty of others out there that I would encourage you to explore by talking to course advisors. So as I mentioned, get advice. Certain courses, for example, require specific entrance requirements. So if you wanted to be a teacher, many teaching courses now, so when I did it, this wasn't an issue, but nowadays you do need to complete something known as a CASPER test, which is a scenario-based test. Some courses will require interviews or folio submissions or auditions. So design courses, for example, don't rely on an ATAR, but look at a folio of work as an example. And also many universities are now offering places to students prior to ATAR release. So that's also an option for you. And the link I've got down here is to Swinburne with their early entry program. So a lot of universities do offer that early entry and offer places even before results come out at the end of the year. Now, just to close this presentation, the key thing then is, okay, what happens once you get accepted into a course and you've enrolled? There are lots of supports out there. And it's very important that you understand that they have to be provided. So every university in TAFE has to provide either student disability support service or equity service. And in fact, we are in a position now in Victoria where every TAFE, as of last year, now has a dedicated team or person to support young people transitioning from secondary school to TAFE who have a disability. And that disability can cover a range of areas. So this person is known as a disability support officer or disability transition support officer in some cases. So we've worked closely with the person from RMIT, and their role is to help with that transition and provide support for about 90 days. And you can actually connect with them while you're still in high school. So if you're in your final year and you're planning to finish up and move on to a TAFE next year, then you can actually start making contact with that person, and all the TAFEs will have a link where you can access them. So the RMIT link here, if you were to access this link, there is a link or an email where you can access their support person. And they will help with things such as what supports you have access to. They will explain things around reasonable adjustment. They'll offer wraparound support, and they will prepare you for once the 90 days are up, just to make sure that you have the supports in place and feel the confidence to access whatever you are entitled to. So, disability and equity services at tertiary institutions do support various conditions as have been listed here. So, conditions can range from physical disabilities, mental health conditions, mobility, long term medical illnesses. There's a whole range, but ultimately, they are there to make sure that you can access the learning and also to make sure that you can succeed in the learning. So, reasonable adjustments generally can be made to the way that the delivery or assessment of the work is done. And your learning plan, and I do apologize about the dot points on that right side because it's actually really difficult to read, but just to go through it, your learning plan may include adjustments to your study conditions. So it might involve things such as having more time in exams or rest breaks. So similar to what can be offered with VCE exams. But it can also involve things such as offering course materials in different formats, enabling assistant staff or assistive technology, offering time extensions, but also considerations around placements because a number of TAFE and university courses will often involve work placements as part of the study. So ensuring that that is also accessible and will give you every opportunity to succeed. So thank you very much for your time and for listening. And I'll hand it back over to Evelyn in case there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Francesca. You provided such a wealth of information and really valued the information you provided and resources on pathways as well. I love what you said around focusing on what you love, remember your goal or goals, and get advice where you can. So tap into course advisors and other supports, and really great to hear about the disability transition support officers at TAFE too. So really great information. Francesca, we had a couple of questions in the chat. One was from Julie. Do you have any suggestions for generalised courses or learning programs to do as a gap year prior to commencing at university to support that transition or enhance preparedness?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Look, I think it's very individual, but one thing that's worth looking at is free TAFE. So you might want to, and that's something I didn't talk about, but we're very fortunate that in Victoria, our government has funded a whole bunch of TAFE programs that sometimes are only 6 months long that are free. So that's something that you might want to look into. But a lot of, so again, RMIT is an example, a lot of tertiary providers do offer what they call tertiary preparation courses. So that could also be something to look into, but it is a case of just exploring. So if you have an institution in mind, you might just want to get in touch with them and ask those questions. But if you wanted to do something where you didn't want to necessarily commit financially, then free TAFE is really worth exploring. There's some really great things out there, and some of those courses can be quite short as well.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Francesca. There's also an additional question about law specifically. So we have, I presume, a young person who's interested in pursuing law and how they might go about that.
Well, again, it's very individual, but I suppose it does depend on your circumstances. And I think it would depend. So, for example, one option is you could apply directly if you do VCE and want to do a scored VCE. So you get an ATAR. That's one way to apply and do your research around. Many universities offer law. But if that's not necessarily an option for you and you're looking at other pathways, there are alternatives to get into law through, for example, you might complete depends. There's many different ways. So, for example, you could even complete a certificate or a diploma in business and then apply using that to apply into a law degree. That's not something that's guaranteed, but again, I would encourage you to do a bit of research specifically with different institutions, but it does depend on your specific circumstances. So you could either go straight from high school if you're doing VCE with an ATAR, or you might look at other options that are available. Yeah, and it depends where you live, location as well, where you want to go. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Really great advice. Thanks, Francesca. I've known other adults even who've pursued law after establishing a career in a completely different area. So your advice, Francesca, around most people change careers several times throughout their lifetime. And I think we're all testimony to that. And I think I've changed career paths probably about 4 or 5 times throughout my career. So you don't have to feel stuck in any one pathway. So I think that's a great message, Francesca. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Caleb Della Rosa. Caleb completed his VCE last year and is currently in his first year of university. He's a previous Ronald McDonald Learning Program student and a recipient of the 2024 Charlie Bell Scholarship. Please welcome Caleb to share his experience with all of us tonight. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. That was basically stole a little bit of my introduction there, but it was lovely. Well, eosinophilic esophagitis is a long word to describe throat allergies, and it was something that I suffered from in my earlier years. It led to a long list of health complications during my early development, and it was the reason why Ronald McDonald House first approached us, basically. To say I was in hospital more often than I was in school would probably be an apt description of my years before I turned 10. And due to the amount of school I missed, I was put into the tutoring program. And to tell you how much the people over there helped me is doing it a disservice. They helped me get from a D student to an A student, practically almost. It was a long process, but it was so worth it in the end. Now I know how we all, or people my age, react when adults come up on stage and tell us how to live our lives. We can be a bit dismissive about it. After all, our parents, who, despite meaning well, what are they going to know about current day school climates? Well, I finished secondary school last year, so my experience should basically be the same as, or similar to yours. Firstly, VCAR and ATAR. Every one of you have had someone older than you tell you that ATAR isn't the be all and end all. Yet I'll tell you, when push comes to shove, you'll still worry about your exam scores when you enter the examination room. Many of you might even be terrified about your ATAR. I was in the same spot as you last year. I had a course of my dreams lined up and a specific ATAR I needed to achieve. When exam time came and went, I was worried about if I'd even make that ATAR. As it turned out, I didn't. My top preference was for Earth Sciences at Monash University. The ATAR was high, and despite C's covering some of that, so I was still unable to make it. Instead, I was able to get in my second option, Ecology and Environment at Deakin Geelong. Whilst disappointing, I survived because I had a plan B and C to fall back onto in the case of the scenario where I did fail that ATAR. The change didn't affect me, and now I'm smiling while I attend classes in Geelong. The friends I've made there and the experience I've had have been amazing. So remember that when you wake up early 1 December morning, that even if your ATAR is lower than expected, it's not the end of the world. And a year down the track, if I decided that I wanted to go to Monash instead of staying at Deakin, I could do that. If I felt like ecology and the environment wasn't my calling, I could change into anything within my Bachelor of Science, because uni is so much more flexible than school. Once you're in uni, you can practically do anything. Another thing I'd like to mention is that university is so much better at school at catering to your needs. Even if you think your school is amazing, it is nothing compared to university. My school is wonderful at catering to my needs. It offered me my own room during exam conditions. Yet this is nothing compared to the help offered by my university. Exemptions, added time, mentors, even the ability to move the due dates of assignments. Scholarships are also offered, not only to those with high grades, but also to people like us with learning or physical or even financial hardships. Knowing where these are located on the university website was one of the first things me and my parents did when we were looking through universities I wanted to go to. You can even apply, as was said before ATARs even come out. For example, I applied for a scholarship at Monash before my ATAR came out, and I received it, and plus guaranteed entry, even if I achieved that ATAR score. Nothing happened when I didn't achieve that ATAR score, and I was free to apply for a similar scholarship at Deakin, which I also got. These scholarships can go as high as paying off most of your school tuition, making the thought of payment that much easier. I know I mentioned C's a little bit earlier, and even though it's something that I'm a little bit confused about, and the other speakers will explain it much better than I ever will. I will want to say though that if you're eligible for it, even if you don't think you're eligible for anything on it, still apply. Most people don't even know it exists. I certainly didn't. It wasn't until I logged onto this seminar, this same seminar last year with my dad, that I even heard about it. Seas affects selection ranking, allowing the disadvantaged to catch up. I recommend starting to collect information you need early, so that you have the chance to see the practitioners and professionals that are relevant. You need this. You need to see them before they get busy, as others will start to talk to them, and Cs will will start to talk to them about Cs, and their schedule will get clogged. For those of you who are about to enter year 12, I won't sugarcoat it. It's going to be a hard couple months. A hard couple months. However, don't push yourselves past your limit. Don't stress over every incorrect answer, or the fact that going to a doctor's appointment might mean missing a class. Studying long into the night always seemed to worsen my mental health and even my physical health sometimes. It's important to note that you need and should have things outside of school or work that you're doing to get your mind and body into relax mode. It can be so important to distress yourself during year 12. Stressing yourself into burning out is so common. I saw so many of the smartest people in my year level in high school fall into it, even without the health spectre or whatever other specters over them. Hobbies are great at combating this, and can be anything. Some people, like my brother, who is currently going through year 12, enjoys submerging himself in the world of sport, because when he's on the footy field, he's not thinking about a math stack. It doesn't even need to be a sport or even outside of home activity. I was a homebody. I wrote short stories and novels over the course of my year 12. I'd put my mind in the worlds I was writing about, instead of the world of school. Whether they are as simple as walking the dog or gaming on a Saturday night with your mates, it doesn't matter. Distracting yourself for a few hours over the week will help you prevent burnout and early grey hairs. The final thing I'll advise for those in year 11, in year 10 and 11, and some of those in year 12, is have a career goal. Look into your heart and find what course aligns to your passion. Think about what you want to do when you're older. Can help you focus on what goals you're actually setting, from getting into from getting into universities to getting good grades at school. Even allows you to see what courses you need to achieve your goals. I followed my passions, and it helped me understand what I was looking for when I was picking subjects for year 12 and even the courses for university. The saying, if you choose a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life, is something that can really help you understand and realize your career path. For example, I always love to do things with dirt, play in the dirt, playing with rocks and reading books about fossils. Over the years, this transformed into a general love of the sciences that make the Earth's function, like geology and meteorology. This knowledge then helped me select my subjects for year 12 and eventually my courses for university. The knowledge that my dream position helped me, the knowledge about what I wanted to do in my future also helped me push through the medical issues I suffered in year 12. Now, I know some of you in the audience will also ask about friends as you move into this next part of your life. After all, making new friends can oftentimes be hard, especially for us who suffer, or people like me who suffer from autism. I will admit that I was very scared going to university about making friends, especially in a new environment where there seemed to be an endless sea of faces and new people. I'll always recommend going to open week events. They're full of first years just like you, and are usually smaller affairs with no more than 30 kids. Meet a few people who share classes and courses, and try and start a conversation. Always remember that most friendships, no matter how deep, always start with you approaching someone and talking. I met friends in an open week event at Geelong that encouraged students to talk to each other. And just this past week, we worked together to get into the same classes for our second trimester. If you find someone in multiple of your classes, speak to them as well. Ask them what other classes they're in. Sometimes you share a brush with someone in your class on your first day. Even those that feel like outsiders at school can see university as a restart. No one knows who you are, and if they do, them not sharing classes with you. So don't be afraid to go out there and truly express yourself. Be quirky. University is really an expression of that. That's probably enough from me. For year 10 and 11s, I hope you do well in your studies. For those in year 12, this is a doorway to the next chapter of your life, and really enjoy that.
Thanks, Caleb. That was excellent. I loved all your piece of advice, and loved your point around having a plan B and a C, and the journey, making friends, and the importance of making friends and connection, and that ATAR isn't your ATAR isn't the end of the world. And so there are other pathways, and as Francesca said earlier, there are other options, and I like what you had to say around aligning a course to your passions. So really great messages. Thanks very much, Caleb. Did we have any questions for Caleb at all? And perhaps our attendees might have some other questions for you later if you're able to stick around, Caleb. Thank you. Thanks very much, Caleb. Next, we have the VCAA. Del from the VCAA will be presenting on special provision. Thanks very much, Del.
Thanks, Evelyn. So good evening, everybody. My name is Trish, and I'm here today with Del Lloyd. We both work in the special provision team at the Victorian Curriculum and Assessment Authority. We are pleased to have the opportunity to speak to you today. And before we begin our presentation on special provision, we would like to actually give an acknowledgement. So the Victorian Curriculum and Assessment Authority proudly acknowledges and pays respect to Victoria's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and their rich and enduring cultures. We acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as Australia's first peoples and as the traditional owners and custodians of the lands and waters on which we rely. We pay respect to elders past and present of the lands where we conduct our work and recognise their ongoing contributions as the first educators on the land now known as Victoria. So, special provision is a term used by the VCAA, the Victorian Curriculum and Assessment Authority, to describe the different forms of assistance that are available. We will discuss more about these in the upcoming slides. So special provision provides students who are affected by illness, disability or other personal circumstances with an opportunity to participate in and complete their senior secondary studies. The underlying principle of the VCAA's special provision policy is to ensure that appropriate, fair and reasonable options are available to students so that they can demonstrate their capabilities where their learning program or their assessment is affected by disability, illness, impairment or some other circumstance. So the types of special provision can be put in place for classroom learning, school-based assessment, or for VCE examinations. So classroom learning and school-based assessments, the school is responsible for identifying students who require special provision for their classroom learning and for their school assessments such as SACs. While schools are not required to seek formal approval from the VCAA for the provision they choose to implement for their students, we do recommend that schools align their policies and practices with what is likely to be approved by the VCAA for external assessments. So provisions approved by schools may be for a fixed period of time. For example, if a student has a broken arm, or they may be for a long-term or ongoing condition like a learning disorder, where provisions may be needed throughout a student's schooling. It's important that schools regularly review a student's special provision for classroom learning and school-based assessment. This helps to ensure that the provisions in place remain appropriate in meeting a student's requirements. So special examination arrangements and derived examination scores are two types of special provision. Derived examination score, or DES as it is often called, is a form of special provision a student can apply for if, due to the sudden onset of illness or injury at the time of the exam, their result is unlikely to be an accurate reflection of learning and achievement that has taken place throughout the year. Or a DES might be applied for if a student has been unable to attend an exam. A DES is not guaranteed, and we always encourage students to attempt their exams unless they're really not able to do so. Students who attempt their exams and perhaps are unwell during the exam can still apply for a derived examination score. A DES is not available for the general achievement test, just for the end-of-year exams and the critical thinking test. So for VC examinations, including the general achievement test, the VCAA is responsible for determining eligibility and approval in the form of special examination arrangements and the derived examination score. The school is responsible for applying for special examination arrangements on behalf of their students, and the VCAA aims to approve provisions consistent with those already in place by the school for classroom learning and school-based assessments. You heard before from Caleb about Cs with VTAC, so you may be eligible to apply for the VTAC Special Entry Access Scheme, even if you do have special examination arrangements approved by the VCAA. Applying for one form of special provision does not preclude you from applying for another. The Special Entry Access Scheme is overseen by VTAC, not by the VCAA, and you'll hear more about that in this evening's presentations. So, special examination arrangements are adjustments made to the format or procedure of a VCE examination for students who may need assistance to demonstrate what they've learnt in an assessment environment. So if you believe your ability to access examination questions or communicate your responses is impacted by your condition, you should discuss with your school special examination arrangements. Cs, which is also what special examination arrangements are called, are intended to remove barriers to a student's ability to show the assessors what you know and can do. The same academic standards and assessment criteria still apply. Examinations completed using special examination arrangements are marked the same as any other examination. The underlying principle is to ensure that the provisions approved are fair, reasonable, and appropriate. It is the responsibility of schools to identify students who may require special examination arrangements and to apply to the VCAA on their behalf. When a decision is made by the VCAA, that this is communicated to the school, who is responsible for notifying you of the outcome. The original closing date for Cs this year for all known conditions was March the 7th, but certainly late applications can be submitted during the course of the year. A panel review applications and they understand that you might have a recent diagnosis or you might have experienced a change to your health condition, and the school believes that provisions are essential. The VCAA generally receives around 10,000 applications for special examination arrangements each year. Now, Del is going to speak to you about the categories for special exam arrangements. Thanks, Del.
Thank you very much, Trish, and lovely to meet you all. And Caleb, can I just say how excited I was to hear that you had learned about the support available from the special examination arrangements at this seminar last year. So the special examination arrangements are available for a range of conditions from chronic or long-term, such as the language or learning disorders, or they can be more episodic in nature. They're also available for those mental health conditions or medical needs that may exacerbate or come and go. Some will also be for acute short duration issues, perhaps like a broken arm or other kind of physical issues. So there are a really wide range of issues for which special examination arrangements can apply. So I'll tell you just a little bit about some of the examination arrangements. So there are over 80 different types of supports that can be offered. So these include things like the rest breaks or the extra working time, voice to text technology, or some of the others on the screen there. There's a full range on the VCAA website, so do check it out for some details about the range of conditions. And I guess there's potential examination arrangements available, but not every provision is listed on the website, and we can get very unique requests. Wow, there's a gremlin in the PowerPoint. My apologies. We can get very individual requests, so it's more around identifying the students' needs. And what will enable them to access and respond to the examinations. So it's not the case that a particular diagnosis certainly would need a particular arrangement. But the key point there is, I think, to have a think about how the conditions are impacting on examination performance, and then base the requests on what's appropriate from that perspective. Just have a think also about whether, for example, the format of the examination might impact what special examination arrangements are necessary. So you might not need the same supports for a long written examination versus mathematics or some other kind of exam. So have a think about those. And I'd also really encourage schools to try and to work with students on what arrangements are going to be most helpful. So try them in school-based assessments if you get the opportunity, just to make sure that you've tailored and really got the most appropriate supports. So let me talk quickly about the evidence requirements. So these did change in 2023, so it's really just worth being aware of these. So obviously a student consent form, and then a school-based evidence form that needs to include a description of the issue, and importantly, a history of the provisions that have been used by the student, and evidence that the school used to decide about the appropriate provisions. And I think somebody earlier referred to sort of the disability and inclusion supports. Schools are, like universities, required to provide disability and inclusion supports. And so they will make appropriate adjustments based on the evidence that's available to them. So the idea for the school to communicate the evidence, so the health professional or the teacher observations that they used in making those provisions available. The supporting evidence used to be compulsory. It is now not compulsory to provide diagnoses or medical forms. The most important thing is that those things, if they're necessary for the school to fully understand the condition and any recommended adjustments, the school may additionally provide those. But there are some times when students might not either be able to access or have a specific diagnosis, but still have a functional impact, something functionally impacting on their learning. So I would just say that the important thing for you as students is to work with schools, to discuss with them if you're having challenges, and to help the school to build up a justification for what the challenge is and what might be done to assist. Emergency applications. So these are applications for injuries or illness or something sudden, including a flare of an ongoing condition, but things that happen actually at the time of the examination. So, for example, if they were to break their arm or have a flare-up in the days or even on the morning of an examination, there is a means to apply for emergency special provisions. So that means that the student with a broken arm may have access to a computer for writing, for example. Those can also be done on the day of the exam via phone call. So schools can call us and we can approve things within a matter of minutes over the phone. The other thing I wanted to just draw your attention to is there's a number of arrangements that actually don't require VCAA approval. So these are things that you can ask your school to provide you. Could include cushions, furniture, standing desks, the other sort of sensory or fidget toys, particularly with earplugs, that's sort of referring to foam earplugs. Some students do listen to white noise, for example, or have other forms of headphones, but they do specifically require VCAA approval, but not for earplugs. And there's a few other things listed there that you might find supportive that your school would be able to assist with. So I'll wrap there, but just to say, I work with your schools to determine what would be helpful. They should use specialist reports and medical reports to help them to work with you to decide what's going to be appropriate, led by the condition. But yeah, we're always happy to assist schools. So if you find that your school would like to talk through a particular situation, or that they are unsure how to approach something, we're really happy to have some conversations and put in place arrangements that will help students to access and succeed in their exams. We have our contact details here. So there's a phone number and also the email address there, but also definitely you could type down that link, or you could just Google search VCAA special provision, and that'll take you directly there as well. So we might stop. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Del and Trish. That was really informative, and I really like that slide around provisions that your school can implement that VCAA don't have to approve. That was a really helpful slide that I haven't seen before, so that was great. We did have a few questions for you, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
I'll just work from the bottom up. With regards to special provision, a young person was only told they would get 15 minutes extra time and a separate room, but they'd like to have a clarifier. They didn't know that they could apply for a clarifier. They're in year 11. How would they go about that?
Yeah. Shall I go? I'll kick us off. Trish is probably more expert than myself, but my first advice would be to have a talk with the school about the challenges that they're experiencing and why they think that a clarifier might help, and to see if they can test out with the school using a clarifier, perhaps in some test exams or some school-based assessments, just to see if it does actually help. And if they find that together that is something that's useful to help the student to access and succeed in those assessments, then ideally before March, but certainly in time before March of the VCE year, to make an application. The school needs to make the application, but they would include the information about the thing that had been experienced, that the clarifier had been trialled, and that had been helpful. Just to make an application. The VCAA doesn't have rules, as I mentioned, about certain conditions are or aren't allowed certain things. It's really around the experience of the student and the school in working together to identify what is necessary for the student to access the examination. Did you want to add anything else?
No, just quite a few of those provisions, like having a reader or a clarifier or a scribe, they really do need to be practiced. So if it is possible to make an arrangement or come to an understanding with the school that there will be opportunities to trial that provision and get used to working with another person like that, that can be extremely helpful in year 11. And then looking ahead to year 12, certainly that all of that experience that can then be very helpful school-based evidence in putting in an application.
And I might just finish that with saying that the VCAA tries very hard to follow school-based decisions. So if a student had been using a clarifier or a reader throughout their year 11 and 12 studies, and they had been practiced with that, and the school wrote and said the student has this issue and we've used the scribe and it's really helpful for accessing the exams, it would be very unlikely for the VCAA to decline that.
That's great. So the key message is work with your schools around practicing those provisions and discussing what you need. So really great advice. Thanks, Del and Trish. Another person asked about the critical thinking test and whether this is done by year 11s doing a 3-4 subject.
Yeah, I mentioned the critical thinking test. That's only for students who are actually studying the subject extended investigation, which is available as a year 12 or unit 3 and 4 study. I threw that in there because it does come up in late July, August, and it is something that we would make provisions available, but a relatively small number of students in the state actually do the extended investigation study. But That's what it's linked to. It's part of that study.
Great. Thank you. I hope that's helped to clarify that question. Another parent has asked about their child who's currently in year 10, wants to start VCE next year, aiming to do it over 3 years and likely to be unscored. They're just concerned about the 80% attendance requirement. Will there be exemptions, or are there exemptions available for people with chronic health conditions with a medical certificate? Can that 80% look different or less? We've got a couple of parents online who are concerned about that attendance rate.
I don't think that the attendance rate is something that special provision specifically deals with. That's probably one to email in, I think.
Yeah.
You know more?
Well, yeah. Schools, individual schools do come up with their own attendance policies. And, in some schools it might be 90%, in others it's 80%. Schools can be, there's quite a bit of variation. And as far as the VCAA is concerned, we don't stipulate what that percentage has to be. There is, on the website and in the handbook, the VCA handbook, you'll see there is reference to students. Any unit of study needs to be 50 hours of class time. But we don't say a student must attend 80% of the time. Schools do have their own policies around that, and some are much more flexible. So again, while we don't want to be saying all the time, you have to, have a conversation with the school. With something like that, it is important to discuss those options with the school and to find out what support and what flexibility there would be as far as attendance below 80%, if that ended up being the case.
Thanks, Trish. And I suppose,
sorry, just in relation to the mention of unscored study, obviously that is the preferred pathway or the best pathway for some students. But just to articulate that we have many students who are able to pursue VCE with the support of some very substantial special provisions. So some students will have up to 16 different special provisions applied to every class. They might be doing it in Braille. Some young people do it by eye movement communication. There are incredible amounts of special provisions available. So before going unscored, I would really encourage schools to contact us and for you to work with your schools about the extent of special provisions that are available. We really aim to accommodate so that students can access it. So if there's any provision, even if it's not listed on the website, that you together with your school feel would help the student to obtain a VC score, then really get in touch. It would be really good to see if we can work those arrangements through.
Thank you. Someone's actually just jumping back to the previous question. What is a clarifier? Someone was hoping for some information about what that is.
So a clarifier is someone who will sit with a student when they're undertaking an assessment. And when the student asks for clarification about a particular word, maybe that they're reading in a question or a phrase, they can ask for clarification, and the clarifier will give them an alternative word to help them, if you like, understand the meaning of what they're reading.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Trish. I thought that was a great explanation. A question at the end. What happens if a student misses the deadlines for assessments or exams?
Well, if that's referring to deadlines for SACs and internal assessments, that is very much a school decision. And if a student has been unwell and has a medical certificate or has support from a health professional, perhaps about why they might need extra time or they might need an assessment delay, that would be a conversation to have with the school. It's a little bit different with exams. You can't resit an external assessment. You can't when those exams come at the end of the year, they do need to be undertaken at that time. But if a student is unwell and unable to sit an exam at the end of the year, while they can't do a resit, they can apply for a derived exam score if they've been prevented from attending and undertaking that exam.
Thank you. There's just a couple of last final questions regarding the GAT. Do you actually have to complete it?
Well, certainly the BCAA is very much encouraging students to sit the GAT, and it's used for a wide range of, moderation and so on, areas that the VCA needs that qualification for, needs those results for. However, for an individual student, if they were unable to sit the GAT, it won't actually impact their VCE study scores. So it won't lower their study scores. And it also doesn't mean that they can't apply for a derived exam score. So if a student wasn't able to sit the GAT, it's still possible, like if they were sick at the time of an exam or they weren't able to sit an exam at the end of the year, it would still be possible to calculate a derived exam score for them without the GAT. So while it's very much encouraged, it's not going to, if a student can't sit the GAT, it's not going to prevent or impact their VCE scores or their ATAR or their ability to get a derived exam score.
Thank you, Trish. That's really helpful. I think we had one final question from a Year 11 student who just asked whether if having students with other special needs or extra support needs in the classroom and how to actually manage that. I'm not really sure how you might answer that, but Trish and Dale, I'll hand over to you for that final question.
Is that a question about a small group for an examination? For an examination at the end of the year, if there's a number of students with special provisions, they can either sit in a separate room or sometimes in a group, in a room together. So, yep, small groups are available, and that's something again to talk about with your school if that would be.
Thank
helpful.
you. So you don't have to sit in an isolated room by yourself. You can sit with a group.
No, not at all.
Great.
No.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Trish and Del. That was really great and really informative. And I'm sure we'll probably have some other questions at the end. But really wanted to thank you so much for your insights on special provision.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
So I'd like to introduce our second young person speaker of the night, Emily Angelique. Emily is in her third year of university and is a previous 2022 Charlie Bell Scholarship recipient. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be presenting to you all tonight. I'm just going to get my slideshow already. Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Emily, and as I mentioned, it's a pleasure to be presenting to you all tonight. So, I was diagnosed with brain cancer when I was 4 years old in 2009. While most children were starting school and discovering the world, I was facing challenges far beyond my years. I did not fully understand what was happening at the time, but this experience has shaped the person I am today. It taught me resilience, strength, and the value of hope, qualities continuing to guide me through everything I do. Much like my early health challenges I faced, starting VCE in 2020 presented its own set of obstacles. With the COVID-19 pandemic forcing schools to move to online learning, I faced a whole new set of difficulties to navigate. In my third semester of Year 11 during 2021, I experienced a stroke as a result of previous cancer treatment. Recovery was slow and demanding, and managing my health alongside remote learning placed considerable pressure on me, both physically and emotionally. On top of this, I have experienced and continue to experience side effects from my previous cancer treatment, including fatigue challenges, short-term memory loss, hearing loss, and stunted growth. These ongoing challenges made the demands of VCE particularly difficult. However, they have become the foundation upon which I built my resilience, ensuring nothing stood in my way of achieving my best. Despite the challenges I faced during my studies in VCE, I remained determined to succeed. In Year 11, I was elected form captain, which helped me stay connected with my peers and develop leadership skills during remote learning. In Year 12, I was honoured to serve as music captain, strengthening my involvement in the school community and providing a platform to inspire others through creativity and perseverance. Completing my VCE was more than an academic achievement. It was a testament to my resilience and ability to adapt. I was also grateful to receive, as mentioned, the Charlie Bell Scholarship from Ronald McDonald House Charities, which offered valuable support and further encouraged me to pursue my dreams at university. I would not have made it through my VCE studies if it was not for the ongoing support provided by my family, friends, teachers, and health and wellbeing counsellors. I learnt from them not to be afraid to ask for help when you need it. While it is easy to try and do everything on your own, reaching your full potential often means accepting support. The help I received included practical adjustments, such as extra time on tests and exams, as well as rest breaks, and support with hearing aid devices, all of which made a significant difference in my VCE study experience. Currently, I'm in my third year of university studying early childhood and primary education. I got into this area of study via a diploma pathway, as I did not meet the maths prerequisite after finishing my VCE studies. My cancer journey inspired this path, as I was supported by organisations like Challenge and Camp Quality, just to name a few, through charity camps, bringing joy and connection during a difficult time for myself and my family. These experiences sparked my passion for working with children and giving back to others. Throughout my studies, I have received valuable assistance from the university's Disability Support Services. This is at Monash University. This includes access to a note taker who attends all of my classes, additional time for assignments, and support with hearing aid devices, which help me to fully engage in my learning. In addition, my interest in music grew through hospital music therapy experiences, where post-treatment I began to learn the violin and currently am learning the guitar. In the future, I hope to become a music therapist or volunteer with a cancer charity such as Camp Quality, using my past experiences to support and bring joy to children and families facing similar challenges. That was my VCE. And me receiving the Charlie Bell Scholarship, which is very honourable. And this is on some of my placements teaching as well. So, in summary, the three most important pieces of advice I would like to share with you all are: maintain balance, follow your passions, and only take on what you can manage. One of the most important I've learned is the value of balance. It is easy to get caught up in the excitement of life's opportunities such as work, hobbies, studies, or volunteering. But without balance, even the most rewarding commitments can become overwhelming. I have come to understand the importance of setting clear priorities. For me, my health comes first and my studies come second. Another important piece of advice is to do what you love. Choosing activities that genuinely bring you joy can make a big difference. Alongside my university studies, I'm a member of the Monash University Philharmonic Orchestra. I volunteer as an advisor at university, helping first year uni students and other students transitioning into uni life and building those meaningful connections, which I know can be difficult. And I'm also a youth leader with the cancer charity Canteen. These roles and hobbies are meaningful to me, not just because they have helped me grow as an individual, but because they give me a sense of purpose, connection, and joy. Never let your past or current health challenges stop you from pursuing your dreams. With determination and belief in yourself, you can achieve anything you set your mind to. Don't forget to be open as well. There are so many opportunities out there and so many ways to get to where you want to be. As I've learnt from my previous VCE studies, don't stress too much about your ATAR results. You can always get to where you want to be another way. Finally, take on only what you can manage. There have been so many opportunities I've wanted to pursue. However, I've learned to recognize my limits. It is not about saying yes to everything, but about choosing what truly matters and fits realistically into your life. I focus on quality over quantity and remind myself that doing a few things well is far more sustainable than trying to do everything at once. I would like to end my presentation by mentioning a quote by, there we go, by A. Milne, Tori Amos, and Theodore Roosevelt. Promise me that you'll always remember you are braver than you believe, and stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Healing takes courage, and we all have courage, even if we have to dig a little deep to find it. When you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. Thank you all for listening tonight, and to all VCE students, I wish you all the best with your future endeavours and studies.
Thank you very much, Emily. That was fabulous. And I don't know how you came up with that quote from A. Milne, Tori Amos, and Theodore Roosevelt. Three very, very different people, but what a great quote. Thank you for sharing your insights, and love your three key messages too. So really, really insightful and helpful for everyone attending tonight. Thank you. I'm sure we'll have other questions perhaps for Emily later on. I think one of the questions that came up for Caleb earlier, and perhaps you might like to touch on this, Emily, is for a young person who's sort of going through health issues and having to balance study, and how would you tap into resources, particularly mental health resources, when you're feeling not that great, and what kind of supports would you draw upon during those times?
Absolutely. So definitely what I have found has helped balancing my, I guess, health circumstances with studies is I learned in high school about the importance of mindfulness. So I do a lot of mindfulness exercises, and this just helps me just sort of zone out and not think about either studies or health, and just to have a bit of time to myself. I think as well, having obviously balancing studies with health can be tricky. So having an activity that you might love doing, so this might be a hobby such as a sport, or such as myself playing an instrument, or even something that you might do at home. You might do art or anything like that, where you can just take some time to yourself, and yeah, take some time to yourself and just sort of rejuvenate. And because I know as stressful as studies can be, it's good to sort of zone out and make sure you're in the right mind space to do those studies. Because I know that when you're stressed or you're thinking about so many different things, study can be extremely difficult.
Absolutely, Emily. And I like your advice before around don't be afraid to ask for help when you do need it. So, really great advice. Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to invite our last presenter this evening, Luke Papathiohari from the VTAC, Victorian Tertiary Admissions Centre. I'm sorry, Luke, I probably stuffed up your name.
No, that was quite all right.
So
That was very good. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Okay, so thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm here to discuss our equity scheme, so Cs and scholarships application through VTAC. Cs, the Special Entry Access Scheme, is the special consideration part of our equity schemes application. Firstly, a little bit about VTAC and who we are. So VTAC stands for Victorian Tertiary Admission Centre. We are the central point for applications to Victorian universities, TAFEs, and independent tertiary colleges in Victoria. So instead of applying individually to each institution, you apply once through VTAC for up to 8 different courses. We will also calculate your ATAR at the end of the year because that's just used for university entrance. The applications for 2026 intake will be upon us soon, so they'll open on August 4. The timely application close will be on September 29. The equity scheme, so Cs and scholarships application, will close on October 10. VCE results in the ATAR will be released on December 11, and change of preference for the big December offer round will close midday on December 13. If we have any IB students with us, your notional ATAR will be released on the 18th, and you'll need to finalise your preferences that day. And December offers will be released on the 23rd, and there'll be a short change of preference window for the January offer round, which will take place on the 13th. Then there'll be 4 additional offer rounds throughout late January and February. So the VTAC application process can be broken down into 4 steps. The first is registering your account, which should only take you a few minutes. You're just providing some basic contact details and telling us if you're currently studying and what you're currently studying. Then you'll need to complete your profile, where you'll provide some additional information about yourself and tell us about your current and any previous education. Then comes the actual course application, the course preferences area. You can list up to 8 preferences in your VTAC application. These can be 8 courses from 8 different institutions or 8 preferences from the one institution. It's completely up to you. You should be listing courses in the order you want to get into them. So dream courses at the top, even if you're unsure if you'll be made an offer for them. Other courses that interest you and that you'd be happy to pursue in the middle, and your backup courses and pathways at the bottom. We have screencasts on our YouTube channel that outline the process, and they're broken into smaller videos. So one on registration, a couple on the profile, another on preferences and so on. We also have some animated explainer videos that discuss and clarify the preference system, how offers work, and subject scaling for the ATAR. And we'll keep adding to this collection of videos as the applications for 2026 intake progress. So after you've submitted your course preferences, so your application, you'll gain access to the equity schemes and scholarships application. So special consideration through VTAC is granted through Cs, the Special Entry Access Scheme. You'll have noticed that I'm referring to the applications equity schemes. This is because Cs and the VTAC scholarships application has been combined this year. So it used to be 2 applications. Now it's 1. So it's now become a bit more than special consideration. So this merge is a great result for applicants, as it means that by applying for Cs and special consideration, you'll also be applying for scholarships at the same time. So Cs is primarily about life circumstances and events that have impacted on your ability to perform at your best in your studies. It compensates for educational disadvantage by increasing your rank for selection for courses, so it essentially makes your application more competitive. It won't change your ATAR. Your ATAR is calculated purely on the maths, on the scaled study scores, but it just sort of bumps you up the rankings for selection. It is not a separate pool of places. You're still applying for the same spots as everyone else, and it doesn't exempt you from meeting course requirements. So if the course has prerequisites, they need to be met. If it requires an interview, you still need to show up on the day. Importantly, and I want this to be abundantly clear, a Cs application can have one of 2 effects on your overall course application. The first is it makes your application more competitive by bumping up the rankings. The second, or it can do nothing. So no effect at all. So this is my roundabout way of saying that Cs can never work against you or disadvantage your application. It can either benefit you or have no impact at all. There are 4 main areas of consideration within Cs, and you can apply for as many as are relevant to your circumstances. The first is personal information and location, and this is based on demographic data that's already present within your account. It considers things like living or school location, underrepresented school, non-English speaking background, underrepresented gender. This area is now automatic, so you used to have to opt into it, but no more. It's now automatic, meaning you don't need to provide any evidence, nor do you need to opt in anymore. Anybody with relevant circumstances will automatically be considered. If, for whatever reason, you don't want to be considered, you can opt out in the Manage My Permissions page, but this can only work for your benefit. Next, we have financial hardship. So most applicants under this category, sorry folks, my it's just my headphones just the battery just ran out. I'm assuming everyone can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Beautiful, thank you. So next we have financial hardship. Most applicants under this category or this area generally apply with Centrelink documents, either their own or their parents'. However, if there's been financial hardship and no government benefits, you can apply with written statements, so an impact statement and a statement of support. If the circumstances relate to your health, physical or mental, you can apply under living with a disability or medical condition. This is obviously the most relevant area for this presentation, so I'll discuss it in a bit more detail on the next slide. Lastly, we have difficult circumstances. So this is a very broad category. It's essentially anything beyond your control that has negatively impacted your education and not covered by the previous areas. Depending on the difficult circumstance, you may need to write an impact statement and provide a statement of support. Okay, so with living with a disability or medical condition, you'll need to write an impact statement and provide a statement of support. And also, just to clarify, you can claim multiple circumstances or medical circumstances or disabilities, and this area also includes mental health. So the information you'll need to provide as part of your impact statement, so what you will write, is you'll need to state your diagnosis, advise the duration, so whether it occurred over a specific time or is ongoing, and then you'll need to write a statement advising how it has impacted your education and prevented you from performing at your best. You'll be prompted to provide all of this information, and you can edit your responses right up until the closing deadline. Once submitted, you'll need to provide a supporting statement from your health practitioner as evidence. Your supporting statement needs to convey and confirm the same information, essentially. So the diagnosis, the duration, the impact on your education, and how it prevented you from performing at your best. You can provide this supporting statement in the form of it can be a statement on the doctor's letterhead, or by downloading our statement of support template, or by sending an online statement of support request directly to the health practitioner's email address. I want to emphasize a statement of support that has all of the information I've mentioned above, so the duration, the educational impact, and what it is. That's all we need. We don't need detailed medical reports. A detailed medical report will not bolster or sort of help your application. We just need the statement of support that confirms everything and details the impact in your studies. So I keep mentioning impact on studies or educational disadvantage because with SEAS as a whole, what the institutions are looking for is insight into your potential. So if it wasn't for these circumstances or this event or this disability, you would have performed, sort of this well. They then know how much consideration to apply. Your written statement and statement of support provides that detail. A medical report, it doesn't go into the educational impact. Talks a lot about what it is, but doesn't go into the educational impact. As it can be difficult making appointments and scheduling time with health practitioners, we encourage applicants to start collecting this evidence early. And remember, you can edit your application right up until the deadline. Okay, so to access the Equity Schemes application, you'll first need to submit your preferences. The application will become available in your VTAC account dashboard and also from the top navigation bar. There's an initial page where you'll need to identify the areas under which you'll apply. So say yes to living with a disability or medical condition and any other categories that are relevant to you. Then navigate to the same area, click into it, and you'll be prompted to detail your circumstances and provide the information we just discussed. So the diagnosis, the duration, and the impact on your education. Once saved, you can navigate back to the Equity Schemes page. You can either edit or complete other categories or scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on Save/Submit. Once you've clicked the Save/Submit button, you'll see this thank you screen that outlines the deadline, and you'll also receive an email receipt. Evidence is submitting in the Providing Evidence part of your VTAC account, and there are two ways you can provide evidence. So you can either upload a scanned document in PDF or JPEG format, or generate an online statement of support request. Neither is preferred by VTAC, so choose whichever is more convenient for you. If you're going to upload your document, ensure that it is clear and it's legible. There's also a downloadable statement of support template that you can access within the Providing Evidence part of your account, and I'll show you exactly where that is in a couple of slides. So this is the Providing Evidence part of your VTAC account. You'll be prompted to provide evidence for any Equity Schemes area you've applied under. At the bottom, you'll see if documents have been accepted or rejected. Now, this is not where special consideration is granted. This is just an initial check, so it's checking that you've submitted the correct evidence, that it's legible, and that it's been uploaded correctly. Once approved, then it goes through for consideration. So to submit your evidence, click on Upload Document. A page will pop up where you can either add files or generate your online statement of support request. If uploading, follow the prompts to find the relevant file. You can then upload the file and then click the submit button at the bottom. If you'd like the blank statement of support document, it can be accessed in this area. There's a blue link in the bottom paragraph. Download and print a blank statement of support. To generate an online statement of support, click yes to the click the yes option and enter the person's email and select the categories they're supporting. You can generate a maximum of 8 statement of support requests. The person will receive an email from VTAC with a link and login details. They click on that link, that'll take them to a login page. They'll enter the login details and they can input this statement directly onto our system. When a document has been verified, it will change from that orange yellowy colour to green. In addition to our downloadable statement of support template, we have a fact sheet available from the fact sheets part on the VTAC website. So it's good to bring with you to a doctor's appointment or to give to the person completing your statement. It just helps ensure that they include all the information we need, and that's available at vtac.edu.au/fact sheets. That's a free download. You don't need to give us an email address or create an account or anything. Okay, so what now? It's probably a good idea to begin getting organised now by researching the requirements on our website or checking out the screencasts available on our YouTube channel. Begin making your appointments and collecting your evidence to ensure your application is in good order. The C's deadline is one of our busiest days and extensions won't be granted. If you need support, reach out. Our team is there to help and they genuinely want to help you get your application right, whether that's for C's, equity schemes, scholarships, or whether that's just for your normal course application, like your course preferences. Applications open in early August, so apply early to avoid the stress of a last-minute job. We'll also be emailing you from time to time, so make sure you follow up on any sort of requests. And support and resources. So applicants and supporters can contact us during our business hours on 99261020, email through their VTAC account or DM us through the main social media channels. And that's it for tonight. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll hand it back over to Evelyn.
Thanks, Luke. That was great. And I like your advice around just preparing early. I think working in the hospital system too, where clinicians are often asked to provide this supporting evidence, there's nothing worse than being given 1 day or 2 days to complete those documents. There was a question in the chat which has been answered around that medical supporting evidence and sometimes it being fairly onerous to access. And I think your messages around doing it early, preparing early, putting your impact statement together is all really good advice. And thanks so much for stepping us through all that the whole process. So it was really helpful. Thank you, Luke.
That's a pleasure. I hope everyone's found it helpful. And again, if you do have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thanks, Luke. And your team's always been fantastic. And there is a VTAC advice line as well. So if anyone's interested and needs more information, the VTAC team are fantastic at responding to queries. So thanks very much, Luke. Before we all go, I'd like to thank each and every one of our guest speakers tonight on behalf of the City LEN, in particular Louise and Francesca, Kiri and the team at Ronald McDonald Learning Program, and my team, the Transition Support Service at the Children's Hospital. Thanks so much for all your help in pulling this event together. Shortly, everyone attending will receive a link to a short evaluation of today's webinar, and we'd really appreciate your support in completing a few questions for us, and we'd love your feedback so that we can plan future events and know how to tailor them in future too. Please note that we'll also, we've recorded tonight's event. We'll post a copy of the webinar on the City Lens YouTube channel, and we will forward an email with a link to the event, the recording of the event from tonight. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank